But yeah, I was just saying, I feel like the world feels dodgy right now. It's like America could get involved with bombing Iran with Israel, but then it's like, are we like in a more of a World War One situation or more of a World War Two situation? Like World War One, the lesson was there's always like entangled, complex alliances that could snowball and catastrophically lead to everyone somehow being at war with each other at the same time. But then you've also got the World War Two situation where it's like, how much do you appease a dictator before there's like which lessons are more worth learning? Like is it a little bit World War One and a bit and more World War Two? Is it more World War Two, a bit less World War One? The thing that I think overall is scaring is the big similarity with World War One is this massive technological overhang that we have. It's in the same way that World War One started with cavalry charges and ended with tanks. It feels like with the technological overhang of like robotics being where it is, AI being where it is, drone technology in particular being where it is, um, if if a war were to start, it would get very, I don't know, technological very quickly, and it would not end how it started. And I guess the last thing I think I learned from those conflicts is that war is very easy to start, but it's very hard to stop. It's pretty easy to invade your neighbor, but it's really hard to see where that ends. And so if you start getting involved with like bombing Iran, like it's hard to see where that ends, basically. All of a sudden you're drawn into a conflict.
Yeah. Just to be clear, it's not just bombing Iran, it's like bombing their
Nuclear facilities.
nuclear
Yeah,
facilities that they should have by international law.
I agree. I'm just saying you're still like sending your planes there to drop your
I
bombs.
agree. I just think that like that part is definitely missing from the the narrative. Um, but no, I agree with you. It's a scary situation the world is in because I think Trump campaigned on this on the idea that he was a peacemaker, but then things actually seem to be escalating in a way where just seems very worrying to a lot of people. So yeah, I don't know what to make of it either. I still deep down believe that he does want peace in the world. I don't see him as a warmonger that a lot of people might see him as. So I'll just have to, I guess, have faith that he ultimately wants peace in the world. But it's definitely a scary situation. I can't deny the fact that I've been worried as well when I read the news.
I think he overestimates how easy it would be to
Mm-hmm.
end these things completely. You know, he'd say, "Oh, I'd have the Israel-Palestine thing over, I'd have the Iran thing over, I'd have the Russia situation over," and all those things 6 months in, arguably worse than
Yeah,
they were 6 months ago.
yeah. I think this is interesting. It reminds me a lot about the conversation that we had last time about how um, about people having different views of the world and operating under different modes of
The
culture
framework.
of like living. Like for example, you made this, you distinguished the sort of, well, Trump actually distinguished the Arabian way versus the typical Western way, and you kind of alluded to the fact that Trump acknowledged that there was more than one way of uh, governing and operating a society. But I think actually this is the crux of Trump's issue here, is that Trump has succeeded in life by making deals. Like that is how he would summarize himself, as a deal maker, as someone that's
After the
able to
deal.
broker deals. Art of the deal. It's I listened to a biography about Trump about how his dad was in real estate outside of New York, not necessarily in the center of Manhattan. But then Trump basically took a lot of learnings from his dad, and then he went into the center of New York and tried to build really impressive buildings there. The stuff that he was able to get past was very impressive for someone of his experience level and his stage in life. And he's basically been on this wave of making insane deals that have been able to not just make himself prosperous, but I guess his sort of tight knit community that he's had, and he's sort of grown this following all through his career to the point where you've got Trump fanatics that just sort of have they treat everything that he says as gospel in a way, which is obviously not great. But my point is that he's been making deals with people in the West, and Western people, you're right, have this way that they operate. But now he's on the world stage and he's trying to make deals with someone, with the leader of Russia. He's trying to make deals with the Iranians. He's trying to make deals with people that actually don't operate under the same worldview that he does or that Western people typically do. And so I think he's found it really easy to make deals because when he's approaching someone and he says, look, I want to make a deal. This is what I want. This is what you want. He's able to sort of create a formula. He's able to rationalize the parts of the deal, and ultimately, what he can understand what his counterpart wants. And I think ultimately, when you make a deal, I think you and I both know this, like working in sales, a huge part of it is listening and understanding what are your needs and what are your problems that I can help fix for you. And that's how you approach a deal, rather than I have this thing that I just want to sell to you. It's about what do you want, and it's about that having that understanding of what the other entity or your counterpart wants, and that might make sense within a framework of Western Judeo-Christian values and a worldview where we all want something that's under this umbrella. But now he's interacting with the Russians, the Iranians, Israel, who operate under a completely different umbrella, under a completely different framework. And I think that this is why he's really struggling to make deals with these guys, is because what he's not able to, he might understand what it is that they want, but it's, in order to make a deal, he's going to have to, like, I don't know, just completely, well, I don't know what the solution is, obviously, but I think that that's the main crux of the issue, is that he isn't really able to give everyone what they want at the same time. And that's the issue, is that there's lots of competing interests. And in a world where each country is operating under a different framework, it's almost impossible to make sure that they have both that they both have what they want at the end of this. I find.
Yeah, not everyone can win. I would push back a little bit on some of the points you made there. I mean, for example, Ukraine and Russia are both Christian countries, right? They're both Orthodox Christian countries. So there is more of an overlap. I think Russia, from my like kind of study of history, there's just this like, if you go back to kind of what was his name? I think it was Alexander during the Congress of Vienna. There's just this Russian method of negotiating which is fundamentally like irrational, but they use this like kind of irrationality completely to their advantage. And it's kind of strange if you almost like conceptually try to structure irrationality because, for example, like there are various points at which the Russian Tsar at the time during the Congress of Vienna was completely willing to just let the world collapse back into world war over like minor points of negotiation, or he would just take personal issue with like Metternich, who was the Austrian negotiator. He'd behave in very irrational ways. He'd be like, run up and kiss someone on the cheeks, and then be like, "I'm going to the theater. I'm not interested in this negotiation." Um, but like this all kind of played into his hands in a way because he ended up getting Poland, which was kind of not even on the negotiating table at the start. I mean, ultimately, Europe was balanced in a way that prevented big power conflicts pretty much for about 100 years up until World War One, from the end of the Napoleonic times. But my point is, there is this like Russian style of negotiating that's I feel like a bit fundamentally irrational. And I've been trying to think, how would I grapple with that if I were in the shoes of the negotiators who have to deal with these things. But then you also have to like kind of maybe the dark thing is it may actually not be in their interest to end the conflict. And so it's going to be really hard for you to be able to get them to stop.
Yeah,
How can you make that deal if it's not in their interest at all?
yeah. Well, this is what I meant by like Trump not really understanding the worldview, because in order to make a deal with someone, you're going to have to understand what it is that they want at the end of this and what they're ultimately looking for. And I think
Yeah,
it's really hard for us Westerners to understand how countries like Russia see the world. Like they're
I
like
think
what you
that's
said,
fair.
they're more than willing to make sacrifices that Westerners would deem as irrational. But from a, the Russian leadership perspective, it's completely rational why they might want to, sacrifice a lot of people in order to, I don't know, succeed in whatever it is that they're aiming for. I think that there is a clash of like how the two countries operate and how the people within it operate, which has lasted, hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think, which is why to this day there seems to be this contention between Europe and the West versus Russia, even though you critically say that they're historically Christian countries. I think how the people have behaved within each country has been very, very different. Um, I wouldn't say that how Russia operated in the 20th century was at all characteristic of Christian values. So even though historically they might be Christian, I think the way that Russia has changed in the 20th century, it's very far from like a Christian country.
To what extent would you view communism as an offshoot of Christianity?